What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. Today we're going to go over a spicy Granblue deck profile that actually did really well at the premium event at Rosemont for Team League. This is specifically done by Austin Spees. So let's get right into it. Next Level Gaming has the new playmats already out for we have Bruce versus Bastion over here. Really amazing artwork, so I highly recommend. We also have the Vanguard Valentine's one, so if you're into like Angel Feather, for example, this would be perfect as well. And in the future coming out, we'll have something with Zorga versus Seraph Snow, so I'm excited for that one too. I'm gonna actually get that one myself too. So you can check out the affiliated link down in the description below and also get a 10% discount on your next purchase. And just like I mentioned, the pilot for this deck is Austin Speed. So him and his team, Benjamin and Edward, they did phenomenal and they got first place overall. And what's really cool is that they actually knew me too and actually read my blog and YouTube. So that's very humbling in that sense too. So I appreciate that, amigos. And what's really spicy about this deck profile, and I think that some people have already seen it, it's Spirit Exceed. We've seen lists during the past maybe year or so that actually played this card with a couple other key cards that it needs, but the whole point of this card is to be able to superior right faster to grade 3. And that begs the question, like, why would you even do that? And like, obviously this seems like almost like a gimmick, almost like a hero type of thing, and that's what's really cool. And Austin explained to me as soon as he got to top 8, he actually approached me and he told me a little bit about the deck, is that if he's going first and he does have access to display, which some key cards help like decked in and also like sent to the drop zone specifically, he can actually use this skill to get to grade 3 faster while they were still at grade 1 essentially. And then the following turn, that person will ride to grade 2, and then after they end their turn, guess what? You've gone a turn with being on grade 3 already. So with the comprehensive rules, now you could actually pay the cost of stride to be able to stride in general. So while your opponent's at grade 2 in that sense, which is really cool. And part of the reason that he did that is because of certain matchups too. Think about like Order Colony, Nightmare Dolls, and some of the other matchups that people may think of. Some of them have a ability to play the grade 2 game, especially being able to ride down back to grade 2 after doing a grade 3 turn, or you just need that extra turn to get faster to your pieces, because sometimes when you're facing like Gradora, as soon as they do that, you're pretty much locked out from reviving any units too, and it puts you in a really like losing position in that sense, which really does suck, you know? So this card, assuming that you're going first, does help in that regard too, but that's not where the spice stops. So another good card too is Negabro. This we actually got recently with Reverse Cocytus, but what this card does is that when this unit attacks, for every 10 cards in your drop, until the end of the turn, this unit gets plus crit, and all of your front row get plus 20k. So the whole front row. Just think about that for a second too. So not only you have beaters that you can like have like Skull Dragon or Ghost Ship and so on, you can call anything and they get like super powerful. So this is for every 10 cards. So if you already have like 20, that's plus 40k for the whole front row. If you have 30, that's plus 60k for the whole front row. And not only that, but this has crit 2, crit 3, or crit 4 on top of that too as well. And so because you've decked into the point with Obadiah, he actually goes into Obadiah a lot with this deck, so your deck will become pretty much full of triggers, so your drive checks will more than likely be crits as well. And then because of that, you're able to distribute the crits onto your rear guards as well. So putting your opponent at 4 damage is really key on sealing that deal. You probably can be even lethal at 3 damage at that point, or even 2 damage depending if they have a PG or not at that sense. So onto the ratios, as you see, he's only playing 1 Negger Ball. One of the things that Granblue is known for is being able to be like a toolbox in a sense, but we're able to get our pieces with Greed Shade. We got like Columbard and, you know, things that mill, so it's just a lot easier, especially since you basically want to do this on a bad bounty turn where you're able to re-ride after your bad bounty attacked, and that way you can like get around some of the costs that Negger Ball has. It literally has the mandatory skill where at the beginning of your ride phase or your main phase, you bind all of your non-trigger units from your drop. So that decreases the drop zone count, right? And so if you're rewriting during bad bounty, you get to push that off in a sense till the next turn. And really, if you don't even get to the next turn because you win, then it doesn't matter at that point because you've won. What's also really cool is that it has a defensive capability, giving an additional plus 5k shield for every 10 cards in the drop too. So because if you do that bad bounty turn and if you don't finish it, your shield value is actually more stronger too, so it helps with that regard too. We also see like more of the core pieces too. We have 1 Night Storm, we have 4 Beatrice. I'm assuming this is the main Vanguard if things don't go as planned with Spirit Exceed. And we got 2 Skull Dragon because Skull Dragon's a great card, and ultimately we've seen over the maybe like past year or two is that anywhere from 2 to 3 Skull Dragon seems to be enough. And there's obviously the Megiddo Skull Dragon attack where you may want to capitalize on 4 Skull Dragons, and I know Solemn Vanguard has covered that in his deck profiles before. The 1 Spirit Exceed because there's actually a card in the grade 1 slots also that helps filter to find it in a sense too. And what's really unique about the grade 2 that also came out in the set in the clan collection is Gold Dragon. And so when it's in the bind zone, you can counterblast 1, retire 1 of your rear guards, and then choose up to 6 other normal units in your bind zone and then return them to your deck and shuffle it. And then you can superior call this unit back to rear guard circle. So this helps filter back, not necessarily filter back, but it helps you put stuff back from the bind zone into your deck. So it helps with deck out, but it also helps get those pieces back in case you kind of like miss in that sense too, for that Negabro turn essentially. And then of course, this is another great card too against Norakami, because if everything's getting bind and this is like essentially face up, I believe you could actually just return all your normal units that are binded from that Norakami matchup. So that's really nice actually just thinking about that, because I know Bell does the same thing. And speaking of Bell, he actually does play the 1 Bell that helps with that. So just return all of your cards from the bind zone to your drop. That's where this becomes a little more important, because again with the Negabro just binding everything, this will bring it back to you, and then you can still capitalize on that. So if you're able to reuse this Bell, especially if you use Negabro from the bind zone, then return this back to deck, and then you can superior call this using Obadiah's skill to fetch it and call it already. Then you can return the rest of your binded cards too, so that way you essentially have your drop again in a sense, which is really cool and a neat trick and just to think about. A little more on the standard stuff, like we see for Columbard. I know some people have been playing 2 Columbard, but I feel for his build, just having the extra Columbards to actually fetch that Spirit Exceed is super helpful. So I can see the justification why playing 4 Columbard, have access to Cannoneer because we do have that Negro Lily play. Greed Shade helps mill, grab pieces from a drop zone, which is very vital. There are other 2 pieces that we need to be able to use Spirit Exceed skill on top of that. So Greed Shade helps with fetching those pieces too from the drop. We have Ghost Ship for draw power, and then this is one of the other recent units that came out, Sea Strolling Banshee. And so when you do open up with this and you do ride Vanguard with it, you can search for anything in your deck and send it to your drop zone. This is where you can send Spirit Exceed or the Samurai Spirit or even the Spirit Knight, the crit trigger, to really get to your combo pieces ready by the time you actually get to your next turn in your grade 2 turn. Of course, if you don't ride this, this has a rear guard skill that helps you mill on top of that and draw a card too. So it's just, helpful in that regard. We're also playing one of the Negro Bones, 1 Bell as I mentioned. This is the Samurai Spirit, and so some people may not be familiar with this card. This is actually one of the pieces that Spirit Exceed needs to see on the board to be able to do its skill from the drop zone. What's really cool about Samurai Spirit, it does have a drop zone skill, and this wasn't in English for a while actually. So we just got it recently, and so you can Soul Blast 1, retire 1 of your rear guards other than a copy of itself, and you can call this to rear guard circle, and then it gets plus 4k until the end of the turn. But it doesn't matter, you just want it on the board, so you're able to retire it, not retire, but actually put the unit in the soul to be able to do Spirit Exceed skill in that sense too. He's also playing the Stoicheia PG. I didn't get a chance to ask him why, but my guess is that if he has a low hand, this is something that he could just guard with 1 card, or if he does the Necronora play, you don't have to discard if you have like less cards too, so it's another option at that point. Versus we do have Freddy or Dolph the Ghosty in a sense, where you can actually PG as well if you need to get it with Necronora. Or you can ride this and it helps like draw a card and discard a card too, so it helps with putting Spirit Exceed if you do draw into your opening hand in that sense too. We have Grenache as well to be able to countercharge, which makes sense. He's playing Bikun, so this kind of helps dealing with like restanding Vanguards. It's another form of a PG. You can also use the Negronora G-Guard to call this to Guardian Circle from the drop zone too, so this helps in that regard too. And then you just keep reusing it in that sense too, which is really nice. He's also playing a split of the heal triggers where he has the grade 3 heal Guardians and the other 2 Ghosties. Probably because of Beatrice's power up, she powers up Ghosties, so I feel like maybe that's why just bigger shield with these, and then these can be for the early game, and then of course like just G-Guard with them in general, so you don't have to worry about that. OT makes sense. The draw PG, 1 copy. I'm assuming just because it's a grade 0, and maybe you get around guard restriction. And maybe with the OT, he wanted to have like maybe 2 draws in essence to have some advantage in that sense. He also plays the Rampage crit, so he has literally 4 different Sentinels in this build too. So I'm sure there's vital reasons to certain matchups where each Sentinel can come into play, especially if we're milling cards, especially if we're like searching for obadiah consistently. Why not have access to these cards? And then the usual 4 chat to be able to stride. We have the one that goes into Soul, GB1. Now, this is the other card that you need, Night Spirit. And it is a vanilla crit trigger, but it is vital for the Exceed combo. So that way you call this from your hand or you call this from your drop zone. You have this guy in Samurai Spirit. You put him into Soul, you get Exceed onto your Vanguard, which is really cool. For the G zone, there's a little bit of difference here. I mean, we've seen Cyclone too, so it's another option if you do play vanilla triggers, which he actually does. Since you have to play the crits, and he's also playing too the ghosty heals, and I think that's pretty much it actually, that can get like some power-ups, so you may want to call them as boosters or attackers, whatever. It's just nice having that flip fodder because he has 3 Obadiah. That's gonna flip anything, so might as well flip Cyclones in that sense and get more benefit after that too. And he often goes into Obadiah to make sure his pieces are there and help deck in and do the combos that he needs to do, but he also can fall back to the bad bounties. He plays 2 of them, which makes sense. Ballerina too, if you want to retire Guardians in that sense too. You got the GB8, which helps for free Superior Call when you're a GB8, and they, of course they get plus 10k, which is really great power up. The last stride that he has is the original Obadiah, so if you don't have any counterblasts, you can actually go into this, mill 3 at least, and then of course you call a Ghosty, and you call a Ghosty behind, you can call Beatrice because she's a Ghosty normal unit, and then use her skill to Soul Blast to call anything from the drop that you want outside of like, you know, her in that sense. So you can get like Skull Dragon or Ghost Ship, Night Storm, but again, you're out of CB at that point, so or maybe a Greed Shade in that sense to be able to grab pieces and stuff like that. So with the G Guardians, they're pretty straightforward. 2 Negro Nora, like I said, grab stuff from the drop zone for bigger shield or PG, Sentinel, stuff like that. You got Negro Mode, similar to her, but you just use the Soul, and then it's for every 5 cards you get plus 5k shield. You got the Negro Lily play, so you have 2 of them. Might as well have access to that. And then we got the Deep Corpse to help mill with that. So if you needed the extra mill but don't need a lot of shield, this card can also be helpful in that mid game time, so that way you get your key pieces. And what's really cool too is because you do have the the Ghoul Dragon that returns cards to the deck. You may not have a fear of deck out as much too, so that's another thing to not worry about with Deep Corpse Dragon. Another thing to talk about and kind of wrap up the deck profile too is that it's the event, it's the format itself. This is Team Link. You have 3 players that are playing 3 different clans, so what you're facing is going to be a lot more variety. And if there is an element of surprise, I've seen that aid many people and quote unquote steal wins in that sense too. So that's why I can see this, like if he goes first, he has a really good shot to like catch people off surprise and be able to just kind of like take the win from there and get a lot of momentum too, especially in key matchups. Moving forward, I'm not sure if that's something that maybe this is something best for that, but it is an option that we could always use in Granblue. I mean, Granblue has a lot of options, so I feel like depending on the metagame and also the events that you're going to, you always want to consider your options. I also got a chance to do an interview article with the team itself as well, so if you wanted to get a closer look on what their responses were and how they talk about their plays and what their focus was and their game plan too, I recommend checking the article too. I'll put it in the description too. You click on it and it goes to the blog, so that way you can check that out. And again, if you want to support the channel and level up your gaming, check out Next Level Gaming for the 10% discount affiliate link as well for some awesome play mats. We got 50 card shop too, so if you want to get a 5% discount on your next set that's coming out, use the code Jaime, it'll get you 5% off. And then of course we have TCG Player, the affiliated link that you can click on and help support the channel if you're going to get your cards anyway from TCG Player at that sense. And if you felt like if this video was worth of value, especially, you know, for a card fighter like yourself, feel free to like it. It helps the algorithm out, so that way other card fighters like ourselves can actually get a chance to see this, whether it be Granblue, share it to your friends, whether it be like Premium, this helps with that regard too. And then I also love to hear your thoughts. You know, let me know in the comments what you think about this deck profile in particular. I know it's really cool, really spicy, and it's cool to see that it's done well over here in the States too. I love to hear your feedback in that sense too. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and then hit that bell for instant notifications for more future content. Until the next one, amigos. Bye.